The planet Valor 9 floated quietly in the silver light of its twin moons. Once called the Garden of the Outer Rim, now reduced to a field of smoke and broken glass. Cities that once sang with crystal towers now burned like dying stars. Their light fading into red haze, the Tyrek Dominion had come without warning, their warships tearing through orbit like blades through silk. They called it pacification, but everyone knew it meant extermination. The Valorans, a gentle species of tall, soft-skinned beings, were never warriors. Their songs could heal wounds, their gardens could feed millions. But they had no weapons, no armies, and no defenses against metal storms. They tried to surrender. But the Tyreks did not take prisoners. They took slaves. They took children. They took everything that could breathe beneath the smoke. In the broken courtyard of the Temple of Dawn, Elder Maravel knelt with trembling hands. Her robes were torn, her skin covered in ash. Around her stood hundreds of survivors, silent, afraid, their eyes fixed on the blackened sky. The air tasted of ash and sorrow. 1,000 prayers rose together, not to their gods, but to anyone who might still be listening beyond the stars. "If there are angels," Mara whispered, "please hear us." The transmission went out on every open channel, bouncing from one dying satellite to another. It was a voice full of pain, a plea lost in endless space. Somewhere beyond the galactic rim, the signal kept traveling, passing through abandoned systems, drifting through the dark. No one expected an answer. The Valorans were ready to die. Their final prayer echoing through the void. Hours passed, then days. The Tyrek warships continued their cleansing, burning the last forests, melting the oceans into poison. Children hid beneath stone arches, whispering songs that once brought rain, but now only brought silence. In orbit, the Tyrek warlord Karen Vus stood at the bridge of his flagship. Watching Velora burn, he smiled behind his bone mask. "Let the weak sing," he said. "Their gods do not answer." But far beyond the edge of mapped space, deep in the black between galaxies, something heard. Hidden among dead worlds and drifting wrecks, a signal monitor came alive for the first time in centuries. Human code, old Terran encryption, flickered across the void. A voice long forgotten awoke, a synthetic guardian buried under ice and silence. Signal detected. It spoke softly. Origin, Velora 9. Distress type, divine plea. The machine paused, analyzing. Then a simple message pulsed through the darkness. Forwarding to Command Beacon 07. Across the cold sea of stars, one after another, Terran beacons lit up like old embers remembering fire. Dormant satellites blinked awake. Deep core stations activated engines, long thought dead. Humanity had not vanished. They had been waiting. And now, the universe had whispered for help on Velora 9. Elder Mara sat beneath the twin moons, her voice weak. "Maybe they never heard," she said. "Maybe we prayed too late." Her apprentice shook her head. "No, Elder. The stars are listening." But even she no longer believed it. Suddenly, the night changed. The air shimmered, the clouds tore apart, and the ground trembled like a heart struck by thunder. Every compass spun wild. Every Tyrek sensor screamed, in orbit. Warlord Karen looked up at his holomap, confused. "What is that energy spike?" "Unknown, my lord. Coordinates." The words cut short as the sky above Velora 9 split open. A tear of light opened in the heavens, silent and wide. From it, dark shapes emerged, massive ships, black as iron, marked with a symbol no Valoran had seen before. 2 words in an ancient tongue, carved on steel: Terran Fleet. The Tyrek crews laughed at first. "Old human myths," one hissed. "They are extinct." But the laughter stopped when their scanners failed, when their comms died, when their shields dropped to 0. on the ground. The Valorans stared upward, mouths open, the twin moons reflected on the black hulls of the new arrivals. And the light made them look almost like wings. Children pointed and cried out, "The angels!" They heard us. The angels have come. Elder Mara's heart filled with fragile hope, tears mixing with the dust on her cheeks. But the sky did not glow gold. It burned red. A single flash, bright, pure, and final, split the night apart. The first human rail cannon fired, and a Tyrek warship ceased to exist. No sound, no warning, just annihilation. The Valorans fell to their knees, weeping and whispering thanks. They did not yet understand what had come for them. They thought it was salvation. They did not know it was humanity. And humanity did not come as angels. They came as wrath, the kind that ends empires, the kind that the galaxy had forced them to become. In the silence that followed, Elder Mara looked to the heavens once more. "Whoever you are," she whispered, "thank you." Her words vanished beneath the sound of thunder. And above her world, Terran fleets formed a burning halo, the answer to a prayer. Spoken too late, yet perfectly heard, for the first time in centuries. The name humanity echoed across the void. Their ships slipped from dark space without warning, moving like shadows of judgment. No banners, no music, no grand declarations, only the quiet hum of power. Each vessel bore scars of old wars, silent proof that they had survived something far worse than the galaxy could imagine. Above Velora 9, the Terran fleet spread like a storm front. Titan-class carriers, rail frigates, and destroyers locked into perfect formation, every ship dark, cold, unlit, like they were not there to be seen, but to end. The sky was filled with silence, so heavy it made the Tyrek commanders nervous inside the Valoran temple ruins. Survivors looked upward, eyes wide. The ships hung motionless, enormous and black against the twin moons. "They are angels," whispered a child, clutching her mother's hand. "Angels don't move like that," murmured Elder Mara, her heart trembling. Even she could feel it, the pressure in the air, the weight of something ancient and powerful. On the Tyrek flagship, alarm screamed. "Unknown fleet detected. Unknown origin," the officer cried. Warlord Karenvus stepped forward, his claws clicking against metal. "Fire at will. Show these ghosts their place." Energy cannons charged. Beams of white plasma tore through the sky. They struck the Terran-led ship and vanished. No explosion, no damage, just silence. Then the Terran ship responded, not with words, but with light. A single rail slug, invisible to the eye, crossed the atmosphere in a heartbeat. The Tyrek destroyer split apart like paper, vaporized before it even realized it had died. Down below, the Valorans saw the clouds turn red. The sky flickered, the air hummed, and every heart froze in awe. "They heard us," Mara whispered, tears running down her cheeks. "The heavens heard us." She wanted to believe it, but the fire falling from the stars didn't feel like mercy. It felt like vengeance. Across the Terran bridge, Commander Ethan Cole stood at the viewport. His uniform was dark gray, marked with the emblem of the United Terran Command, the face of a man who had seen too many wars. He watched the burning planet below and spoke softly. "Velora 9. Civilian biosigns confirmed. Hostiles active. No friendly forces detected." A second officer turned. "Orders, sir?" "Standard protocol," Cole replied, eyes cold. "Extinguish the threat." Fleet Command confirmed the signal. Dozens of Terran ships activated weapons simultaneously. Kinetic slugs, laser batteries, and orbital artillery filled the void. Each shot precise, each strike efficient. Not rage, not chaos, just discipline. Within minutes, half the Tyrek fleet was gone. Their communication grid melted, their shields shattered. Panic spread among the survivors. Retreat! One captain screamed, but there was nowhere to run. Every escape vector was already blocked, every corridor filled with Terran drones. The drones were small, shaped like silver needles, moving with impossible grace. They carried no markings, only numbers. Their AI operated silently, each one transmitting back to the Vanguard. They didn't ask questions, they didn't hesitate. They simply executed orders. Below, the Valorans could see flashes of light slicing through the dark sky. Their temples shook, their oceans boiled. Still, they whispered prayers. Save us, protect us, please. But the truth was becoming clear. Whatever these beings were, they were not angels. On board the flagship Vanguard, Cole watched as enemy signatures faded one by one. Status? He asked. Hostile fleet destroyed. Orbital control achieved. He nodded slowly. Prepare ground units. Sir? There are civilians. The officer hesitated. Then make sure they live, Cole said. But do not mistake them for allies. The Tyrax who remained on the surface tried to regroup. Their command centered deep beneath the ruins of Velora's capital. They screamed into broken radios, begging for backup. But all they heard was static and the steady hum of Terran dropships entering atmosphere. Elder Mara felt the ground shake again. She ran to the temple steps and saw the light descend. Dozens of small vessels landing among the ruins. Human soldiers in armored suits emerged, faces hidden behind black visors. They moved silently, scanning, searching. One of them stopped, knelt beside a wounded Veloran child. A soft blue light flickered from his gauntlet. Sealing the wound instantly, the mother cried, "Thank you." But the soldier said nothing. He simply pointed at the horizon where the Tyrek fortress still stood. The Terrans formed a line, their boots hitting the dirt like thunder. And for the first time since the invasion began, Velora 9 felt something it had forgotten: hope. Above them, Commander Cole gave one final order. "Let the galaxy see this," he said quietly. "Let them remember why humanity was feared." As his ship drifted through the burning clouds, the twin moons reflected off its hull. The light made the Terran Fleet look almost holy. Almost like the angels the Valorans prayed for. But deep down, everyone who saw it knew the angels had never come. It was humanity, and they had arrived in silence. To bring wrath instead of mercy. Asterisk the battle above Velora 9 was over before most could understand it had begun. Where once the Tyrek fleet darkened the sky, now only drifting wreckage glowed like dying embers. Humanity's ships hung silent amid the smoke, weapons cooling, engines humming like distant thunder. Commander Ethan Cole stood on the bridge of the Vanguard, his face pale in the light of burning orbit. He had fought many wars, but none like this. None where the enemy didn't even know who they had angered. "Report," he said quietly. "Enemy command eliminated." "Surface resistance detected," replied the officer. Cole nodded, eyes heavy with resolve. "Then we finish this." Below, the Tyrax were regrouping among the ruins. Their armored transports rolling through shattered streets, they still believed victory was possible. Until the first Terran dropships screamed through the clouds. Fire trailed behind them like comet tails, shaking mountains and hearts alike. The dropships opened, releasing squads of armored humans. Their visors glowing crimson, each moved with the precision of machines, yet the fury of vengeance. Pulse rifles barked once, twice, and Tyrek soldiers fell before they could raise their weapons. The sound echoed through Velora's valleys, not chaos, but rhythm, a heartbeat of retribution. Elder Mara and the survivors watched from a distant ridge. The sky glowed red, the air trembling under sonic booms. "Are they saving us?" whispered one boy. "Or destroying everything?" Mara had no answer. Only tears. Maybe both, she whispered. In orbit, Cole's second in command, Lieutenant Aaron Halley, stared at the tactical map. Sir, ground resistance minimal, but Tyrek Fortress still active under the capital ruins. Cole's gaze hardened. That fortress launched the orbital strikes. It ends today. He turned to Combs. Deploy the Hammer squadrons, orbital precision only. Civilians nearby. Acknowledged. Moments later, Terran rail batteries aligned. From the void came lines of blue fire, slicing through the clouds. Each impact flattened fortifications, melting alloy and stone alike. From space, it looked like lightning carving the planet's surface. The Tyraks screamed, but their cries were swallowed by thunder. One Tyrak captain broadcast a desperate message across open channels. Unknown species, cease fire. This world is ours by conquest law. The reply came as static at first. Then a voice, calm, human, and cold. This world called for angels. They got us instead. Then the transmission cut off, and the captain's ship was erased by a rail slug. On the ground, smoke turned day into night. Valoran survivors clung to each other as explosions rolled across the horizon. Yet amid the destruction, they saw Terran med units moving among the rubble. Machines shaped like floating spheres, projecting light to mend wounds and stabilize the wounded. It was war and mercy, woven together, terrifying and beautiful. Commander Cole walked among the tactical displays. He could hear every report, victories, rescues, deaths, all blending into a single endless hum. He remembered Earth, the silence after its last war. He remembered why they had left. We promised never to fight again, he muttered. Lieutenant Halley glanced at him. And yet here we are. Because someone prayed, Cole answered, voice low, and we still remember how to answer. Hours passed, and the fortress finally broke, its core detonating under pressure. A column of light rose to the heavens, marking the end of Tyrek rule on Valoranine. Terran soldiers stood among the ashes, their armor scorched, their faces hidden. The Valorans knelt before them, trembling, thank you. Angels, one whispered. A soldier turned. Voice filtered through a helmet speaker. We're not angels, he said. We're humans. Then he walked away, leaving the survivors staring after him, unsure whether to feel safe or afraid. High above, the vanguard drifted through debris fields glowing like fireflies. Cole watched silently. He knew this was not the end. When humanity returned to the stars, they would not go unnoticed. Send word to command, he said at last. Mission accomplished. He paused, staring at the burning world below. And tell them, he added softly. The galaxy remembers us now. The fleet began to pull away, engines flaring white against the black. To the Valorans, it looked like stars being born anew. They would tell their children that day that angels descended, wings of iron, eyes of fire, but the truth, whispered in the dark, was simpler. The angels never came. Humanity did, and where they walked, empires trembled, and the heavens burned crimson once more. The war on Valoranine should have been over. Yet the ground still shook, deep beneath the ruins of the capital. The Tyrek Dominion had prepared one last weapon, a fortress buried inside the planet's mantle, powered by a sun core reactor stolen from a dead star. It was their final answer to defeat, a weapon capable of erasing the world itself. From the bridge of the Vanguard, Commander Ethan Cole watched the readings spike across his holotable. Energy surge detected, said Lieutenant Aaron Hall, voice tight with alarm. Cole's jaw clenched. That's not a retreat signal. That's a detonation. If the Tyraks activated it, the lower 9, the surviving civilians, and even parts of his own fleet would vanish in light. Get me visuals, Cole ordered. The display zoomed on the planet's crust, a massive crack glowing orange from within. It pulsed like a heartbeat, slow and deadly. "It's charging," Hale whispered. "Then we stop it," Cole replied, eyes cold. "By any means necessary." He turned to his crew. "All ships, pull to high orbit. Keep firing suppression rounds. Prepare evacuation shuttles for surface survivors." "Sir, what about the core fortress?" Cole stared at the readout, then at the burning world below. "We'll handle that," he said quietly. The crew exchanged glances. They knew what he meant. Only the Vanguard had the mass and shields strong enough to survive a near-core descent, and even that would be a one-way mission. "Sir, we can send drones," Hale protested. Cole shook his head. "Drones can't improvise. They can't make sacrifices. Humanity can." He pressed his hand against the control pad. "Unlocking the ship's core override. Prepare the Vanguard for direct insertion." Outside, the Vanguard began to move, thrusters roaring to life. Its vast hull glowed with heat as it dropped lower, cutting through the atmosphere like a falling comet. Flames licked across its armor, turning the clouds to fire. Below, the Valorans saw it descending and cried out in terror and awe. "The angels are falling," someone whispered. Elder Mara Vel lifted her hands, tears on her cheeks. "No," she said softly. "They're saving us." The Tyrek fortress came into view, a monstrous structure built around the planet's molten core. Its reactor heart pulsed with blinding energy. From it rose beams of light, tearing holes into the clouds. Cole opened a wide-band transmission. "This is Commander Ethan Cole of the Terran Fleet," he said, voice steady. "To the Tyrek Dominion, your time is over." He cut the channel before they could respond. The Tyraks tried to target him, but their cannons melted before they could lock on. The Vanguard's forward shields flared white. Deflecting plasma and debris, the ship's railguns fired in rhythm, pounding through layers of alloy until the fortress cracked open like an egg. Each impact sent quakes through the planet's crust. Inside the control core, Tyrek engineers screamed as systems failed. Warning sirens echoed through every corridor. On the Vanguard, the temperature rose, panels burst, and sparks filled the bridge. "Shields at 30%, Hale shouted. "Keep us steady," Cole commanded, gripping the rail. "If we drift, the shot won't hit clean." The ship's AI spoke through static. "Commander, collision trajectory will destroy this vessel." "I know," Cole answered. "That's the point," he smiled faintly. "Tell Earth." Humanity kept its promise. The fortress reactor hit critical. Cole gave the final command. "All hands, evacuate to secondary pods. Execute Operation Dawnfire." Hale froze. "What about you, sir?" "I'll stay," Cole said. "Someone has to guide her in." The crew hesitated, then saluted silently. One by one, the escape pods launched, streaks of silver against the burning clouds. Cole stood alone on the bridge, surrounded by fire and alarms. He watched the core's light grow brighter. "Let's finish this, old friend," he whispered to the ship. He gripped the controls and pushed forward. The Vanguard's engines ignited one last time. Its massive frame slammed through the Tyrek fortress, cutting into molten metal. For a heartbeat, the world stood still. Then light consumed everything from orbit. It looked like a star being born, a single eruption of white that painted the sky across half the planet. The explosion silenced every Tyrek weapon. Every beacon, every scream, Valoranine's crust split, then slowly cooled. The reactor was gone. And with it, the last breath of the Dominion on that world. High above, Terran ships watched the storm fade. Lieutenant Hall stood in his pod, eyes wet with grief. "He did it," he whispered. "The commander did it." The fleet saluted in silence as the glow dimmed. In that moment, humanity's legend grew not of conquest, But of sacrifice, on the surface, Elder Mara saw the fire fade into gentle rain. Ash turned to mist, craters to steaming pools of light. She fell to her knees. They gave everything, she said softly. The wind carried her words through the broken temple. The angels burned, so we could live. From the shattered horizon, the first dawn rose over Valora 9, and though the Terran flagship was gone, its beacons still blinked weakly from orbit, a simple signal pulsing into the dark. Mission complete, humanity endures. Asterisk, the fires of Valora 9 had faded to mist. Ashes drifted like snow across the ruins. Glowing softly under the morning sun, where once the sky burned red, now it shimmered gold. The Tyrek Dominion was gone, their fortresses reduced to molten rock, their fleets scattered to silent space, but humanity had paid its price. The flagship Vanguard, pride of the Terran Fleet, had vanished in the explosion that saved the world. No signal, no crew, no trace of its commander. Only a faint beacon pulsing weakly above the clouds, repeating a single coded phrase. Mission complete. Humanity endures. Weeks passed, and the survivors of Valora 9 began to rebuild. Terran aid ships descended like gentle storms, bringing food, medicine, and engineers. The once terrified Valorans now watched the humans with quiet awe. The creatures they had mistaken for angels were walking among them, not spirits, not gods, but people made of flesh and iron. Elder Maravel walked through the healing city. Children chased drones through the air. Laughing for the first time since the war began, Terran soldiers helped raise new shelters, their heavy armor gleaming under the twin moons. One soldier paused to hand her a folded flag, black and silver with the Terran emblem at its heart. For Commander Cole, he said softly. He gave everything. Mara took the flag, pressing it to her chest. He gave us life, she whispered, far above the planet. Beyond the thin layer of atmosphere, a Terran salvage crew found what no one expected. The Vanguard, or what remained of it, half buried in cooled magma and broken stone. Its hull blackened, its engines dead, but its command pod still intact. Inside, the air was thick with smoke and silence. Then, as the crew searched the bridge, a faint cough echoed through the dark. They turned, shining their lights, and there he was, Commander Ethan Cole. Alive, burned, but breathing, his uniform torn. His hand still resting on the control column. He looked up at them with tired eyes. Status, he whispered hoarsely. Sir, the Tyraks are gone. The planet is safe. Cole smiled faintly. Then humanity kept its word, he said, before collapsing back into unconsciousness. When he awoke days later aboard the hospital ship Solace, he could see Valora 9 from the window, green light returning to its wounded surface. Elder Mara appeared through the hololink, her voice trembling with emotion. You saved us. Commander, he shook his head slowly. No, Elder, you saved yourselves. We just reminded the galaxy what mercy looks like when it wears armor. Later that night, Cole stood alone in the recovery bay, staring at the stars. He thought of the silence before the war, the exile of humanity, the centuries of being forgotten. Now the galaxy would remember again, not through fear, but through awe, because when the Valorans had prayed for angels, they got humans instead, and those humans had come not with wings, but with will. The story of Valora 9 spread like fire across the galactic networks. Worlds under tyranny whispered the same phrase. Call for the angels of iron, and across distant systems, Terran beacons began to awaken, old colonies rising, fleets returning. The legend of humanity, silent for centuries, now roared back into the stars. Elder Mara visited the memorial at the temple ruins. The walls were carved with 2 lines in both languages. They prayed for angels, but humanity answered. She placed the Terran flag at its base, The wind lifted its edges, making it flutter like a living thing, in orbit. Commander Cole watched the ceremony from the bridge of the Solace. His crew stood behind him, veterans, engineers, and survivors. "We'll move on soon," Halle said quietly. "Other worlds are calling." Cole nodded. "Then we'll go," he said, "because somewhere out there, someone is praying again." The engines roared softly. The light of the twin moons reflected off their hull. From below, the Valorans looked up, watching the Terran ships rise into the heavens. To them, the sky once again burned red, but this time, it was not fire. It was hope, a kind born from sacrifice, courage, and the unbreakable heart of mankind. And as the fleet disappeared into the void, their last transmission echoed through the stars. "We are humanity. We are the angels of iron. And when the innocent call, we will come."